Hello everyone, welcome back to my Gameweek 21 team selection. This is Pras from the FPL Wire. I'm in a good mood because the Man United Arsenal game finished a couple of hours ago. And so we are into the fourth round and we'll talk about the FA Cup. We'll talk about the FA Cup draw for the fourth round on what implications we have. But as ever, I will start with my team last week. So it's been a very long time, right? So I won't spend a lot of time, mainly also because I got a red arrow. But I took a hit, like I had talked about taking a hit. So the good thing was both the guys I got in for a hit, Gordon and Chris Wood, they both did well. They both scored a goal. And so actually the hit worked out nicely. And João Pedro, who I ended up playing, scored a penalty against Arsenal. We'll talk about João Pedro now that he's twisted his ankle. So the team looked fine, actually. The definition of me that I have of a bad game week is basically people want to sell your players and want to jump on other players. I don't see anyone in my team that people want to sell. If anything, the outcome of the game week was that more people believe in Bruno, after the FA Cup game, after the Liverpool game. So maybe a few more want to buy. I think there's a little bit of loss of faith in Fulham because, Robinson disappointed, but no one's selling Robinson. I don't see them. Some are selling Trent, although I still think he's absolutely fine. Some are losing patience with double Arsenal defense or single Arsenal defense. I still think they're fine. And so, by and large, my team looks fine. And after taking the hit, I go from, was it 11 or 12K to now 19K. So still absolutely fine. And like I had said last week, basically these should be the transfers that I do for the foreseeable future. So a lot of my team selection videos will be, guys, I'm saving a transfer. And this is what is going to be this week as well. So if that's what you wanted to hear, that's your answer. But for those of you who want a little bit of a story on my thoughts on, the future game weeks, because we had two cup rounds, the Carabao and the FA Cup, I'll do a little bit of planning. Now, I had spent, the beginning part of the main pod talking about the high-level helicopter view, so I'm not going to do that again. But this was basically the chart that I was talking about that is really, really helpful. This is from FPL Optimized, and there was a pod that they did earlier this week, which had basically FPL Trout, who has been on the FPL Wire before. It has FPL Spaceman, and obviously Sir Talp. So the three of them actually discussed this chart in depth. I have basically cropped it from after game week 31. They actually went right up to game week 38. So a really good pod if you wanted to check it out. But it's useful for you to think about as we get into the game weeks, right? So we had this really important phase where we now found out about the Carabao Cup. Well, the first leg anyway. We found out about the FA Cup, and we got valuable information. Information like, Newcastle could beat Arsenal and reach the final. We got in the Carabao Cup. We got information like, 3 Premier League teams are now out and another 8 are facing each other. So that will have implications on Game Week 34. So it's really valuable. And then we'll get another phase like this after Game Week 24. So Game Week 24 again, after Game Week 24, there'll be the second legs of the Carabao Cup, and there will be the FA Cup fourth round. So again, similar information will come. And again, you'll start to basically make a lot better judgments of how Game Week 29 will look like. And then if you know 29, you know 33 to some extent. Then you will also get judgments on how blank Game Week 34 will look like. If you know 34, then you will know 36. So for me, after Game Week 24, when those things happen, that's the first time people can start saying, I think this is my chip strategy. So before then, it's all guesswork. It's all clickbait. So don't go with anyone's, this is my chip strategy. And that's what I wanted to say. We likely won't know about this Liverpool double. So don't start panicking, another week or so if they don't announce it. But when the European game happens, when the Liverpool game happens and they win, let's say, which is 10 days from now, if they do that, then that will confirm them being in the top 8. And therefore, their Game Week 24 and 25s will become free. So that's why you see here that Everton game could go in either of those. And right now, there's not much to split it at all. The other one here, which I just hinted and somebody picked it up in the comments as well, is basically the Spurs-Fulham game. So there is a chance, because as you can see, Spurs, you guys are having a good season, not in the league, but generally in cups. beat Liverpool. So if there was a theory that the Premier League was trying to be very, very proactive and they wanted to essentially make sure that Spurs don't end up with huge fixture congestion or even a triple game week later down the line, they could be a little bit proactive and say, this game in Game Week 29, which is Spurs Fulham, we could just move it forward instead of pushing it back. So we could move it to Game Week 25. But again, this is contingent on Spurs actually finishing in the top 8 in the Europa League and Premier League being super proactive. So at the moment, I mean, my conversations with Ben and Tala and Deem and others is they think it's like 15-20% that happens. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I certainly wouldn't start buying, these players. Spurs play Arsenal this week anyway, so you don't need to do anything. But this is basically just to tell you that so much information is going to come in the next 4 game weeks. Or 2 first. In the next 2 game weeks, we'll find out when the Liverpool double is. And then we might also find out about the Spurs double. And we'll find out after Game Week 24 about all these cup results that you should be putting in a lot of weight on your transfers. These 1 week punts, these punts which are not basically making your team robust, that should stop. You should be saving if you can save. And unless you have a problem and you need to deal with the problem, then do it. For longer term players. So that I've been saying that for 2-3 weeks now. Now it's becoming clear why and why it's so important now to be saving transfers as much as you can. And I think one last thing that I wanted to say, because the assistant manager chip came in as well, or not the chip, but the prices. I mean, the prices are pretty much irrelevant, right? I mean, it's about the window and it's about the manager. $1 million is not going to make a difference. Like, you're not going to pick, just because you can't afford slot, you'll say, I won't then pick slot, I'll pick someone else. You'll make sure that you do it. So I wouldn't worry too much about the prices of these managers. It's a little bit of a gimmick. But I think what is important is if the double falls in 24, then I'm pretty sure I'm not playing the assistant manager chip. Definitely. Because if it happens in Game Week 24 and I don't know the cup results for the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, I'm not going to just blindly play the assistant manager chip without knowing the landscape for the future. If it happens in 25 though, then I'm happy because then I'll have a much better view of the landscape. So I could be open to playing my assistant manager chip in Game Week 25. So what happens, I'm talking about the Liverpool double because I want a double game week inside the assistant manager chip. So that's my thoughts in terms of, where the game week lands will impact things for the triple captainers and for the assistant manager people, which is everyone. So just now coming back to the cup results themselves. So with this, again, we talked about, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But after Newcastle beating Arsenal and Spurs beating Liverpool, there's now almost a 50% chance that the blanks that we will see in Game Week 29 are going to be Newcastle and Crystal Palace and Aston Villa and Liverpool. This is assuming that Newcastle beat Arsenal and Liverpool turn it around, because the second leg is at Anfield, that they turn it around and they end up going to the final. The other scenario is basically that Spurs do maintain their lead. Let's say it's a draw at Anfield, and so it's Newcastle winning and Spurs winning. That's a 36% chance. So you can see here that Arsenal going through is actually fairly low likelihood. Now, football will football, so you can't start planning, Arsenal don't have a blank anymore and Newcastle do. But the point is that right now it's completely shifted. It used to be like 70% Arsenal's odds to win. And that's where we are. So that's Game Week 29, and that, remember, is impacted by the Carabao Cup. So then today we also had, after the FA Cup, the 4th round draw. So I've highlighted here in excellent graphics made by myself the all Premier League ties. So Manchester United have Leicester City. Now you can think that Man United would be favourites here. Brighton, Chelsea. Remember, these games are one leg only, as in there's no replay. So where we are is basically Brighton at home to Chelsea is not that easy, right? I mean, given the fact that even if it's a draw, it'll go to penalties or first extra time and then penalties. So I'd say Brighton are in it. Obviously, Chelsea will be favourites. Then Everton, Bournemouth, new manager, you'd never know. So this one is also a little bit open. And then Spurs, Villa, also very, very open. So there are 4 good Premier League ties, which basically means we'll have guaranteed 4 more Premier League teams exiting the FA Cup in game week or in round 4. Also, of course, they can be upsets, right? So that's the thing where you will find out a lot more as you go on in basically between game week 24 and 25. And so what will happen when people basically start talking about FA Cup? So look at this. This is game week 34. Now, people will say you're crazy to be talking about Game Week 34. I'm basically just telling you what has changed after tonight, after the draw, after the results in the FA Cup. So you see here, this is Game Week 34. This is the blank that will be caused by those teams that reach the semi-final of the FA Cup. So you see here on the left and the right of these fixtures, I've put basically an in and out. So Brentford are out, West Ham are out, and Arsenal are out. So if two teams are out, then that fixture will stand. If both teams are in, or even one team is in, then that fixture will be a blank. And when I say in the FA Cup semi-final. So basically what this means is, because Arsenal is out, today what happened is there's a slightly higher chance for Crystal Palace to actually not now have a blank in Game Week 34. So Palace could be an interesting team where they actually have good fixtures around 29. They have could have a double in 33, and they could have a game in 34. Now, of course, that game is away to Arsenal. It's not the easiest of games, but you have to start thinking about these teams. What are the permutations and combinations of which teams I should attack if I'm free hitting in 29 versus 34. So that was something new. If you think about Nottingham Forest and Brentford, another one, where if you think Nottingham Forest don't now make the semi-final of the FA Cup, then Nottingham Forest and Brentford have no doubles and no blanks for the rest of the season. So these are the things that we're learning. And we will continue to update this after Game Week 24. I will update this again after Game Week 24. We will have a 100% probability or knowledge of Game Week 29 blanks. So that's how we will develop this. So that's enough about future. Let's come to Game Week 21. So Game Week 21 is a little bit of a strange one. Like, Arsenal seem to be struggling in front of goal. Like today again, they missed a lot of chances. The Newcastle game, they had a lot of, like, Havertz is, by the way, a chief reason for these, because he missed two great chances in both the games. But they will put the ball in the net at some point. And I think there's no better place to do it a better opponent to do it than Spurs. And so they are the highest odds for scoring a goal alongside Man United, alongside Newcastle. And then you have Man City, Chelsea. So these are the teams above 2 expected goals. And then for clean sheet odds, basically the way I read it is it's anyone's guess. Like, the only team above 40%, and we know 40% is a good threshold, is Man United. And I myself don't trust Man United to keep a clean sheet. So below that, Arsenal are second highest, but they're playing Spurs. Spurs are a great attack. Newcastle are good, but it's only 36%. So, Lewis Hall, definitely you should play. Liverpool then are next, because I think Forest will sit back again, but they're great on the counter. That's how they play. So I don't have much faith in Liverpool clean sheet as well. And then below that is just a string of teams where you don't have too much faith. Now, Palace, okay, it's Leicester, 29%. But if you have a Munoz, I'm very excited to play Munoz. So that's where we are in terms of the odds. Now let's go to my team. So I will be playing the Raya and Gabriel double up again. Let's see if this is the week we get a clean sheet. Trent is definitely playing. And this week I'm playing Munoz instead of Robinson. Because last week Robinson had the better fixture. I benched Munoz. This week I'm doing the opposite. Now Robinson is very playable. For some teams that don't have the same bench strength, or maybe don't have double Arsenal or don't have Trent, I think Robinson is very playable. His clean sheet odds are not too different from Munoz. But obviously I have to play Munoz away to Leicester. Then now I will have this 5 midfield for the foreseeable future. Like, I'm hoping until Game Week 24. Because, with Bruno, Gordon, Salah, Sarr and Palmer, I think these all 5 are fantastic picks. And yes, there are others like Mbumo, like Eze that I'm missing. But I'm okay with these for now. And we'll see if anything changes. I'll talk about captaincy in a second, because I know you can see Palmer is captain. Let's go to my attack first. So I've got Isak and I've got João Pedro. Now, João Pedro, the story is that Hurstler basically said before the FA Cup that he twisted his ankle. He'll have an MRI scan. We have not heard from Hurstler after, because even after the FA Cup game, he said, I have not checked the results and everything. He didn't say much. We will not get a press conference because their game is on Thursday. And this is true of Ahmad as well, by the way. For people that have Ahmad, we probably won't get a press conference for Ahmad. And he also had a knock, although he played the back end of the game, so he shouldn't be an issue. But generally, I think you need to remember that if it's a midweek fixture, the Thursday fixtures, you may not get a press conference. And so I will probably end up playing João Pedro purely because if he's fit, he's fit. If he's not fit, he doesn't play. And I have Chris Wood on the bench who'll come on, home to Liverpool, not the end of the world if he has to play, right? So that's where we are. And by the way, João Pedro did tweet that scan came okay. But what does okay mean, right? I mean, okay could be that it's not a long-term thing. It's not a bad injury. So anyway, next week when Chris Wood is home to Southampton, I'll be benching. I would have benched João Pedro. So I don't mind keeping him. Other people looking to sell or if they have an issue, that's your call. Like, I think with the injury issues, he in certain conditions under certain teams you could sell if you wanted to, especially if you're not sure if he starts. I'm 50-50 if he starts this game. So that's where we are. Let's come to captaincy. So with captaincy, there's one thing for sure, I'm not going to captain Salah. So that's the first thing. Like, I'm not getting tempted on, if Isak has a hamstring thing, then should I captain Salah? For me, both Palmer and Isak are above Salah. And it's worth taking him on this week. It's one of those weeks where I want to take him on. So then the question is, Isak, my first instinct was Isak captain. But after him being taken off on the 60th minute against Arsenal, after basically him getting a full rest, we will have another Eddie Howe press conference, but he doesn't tell the truth, right? So there's not much you can rely on it. If he's even a little bit iffy on Isak, then I'm going to find it hard to captain him because you know what? They play on Wednesday and then they have the lunchtime kickoff on Saturday. So could you see him starting and getting 65, 70 minutes? Now, if that is enough for you, go for it, captain him. But I want 80, 90 minutes, man. Like, I want 90 minutes from my captain. How many times have you had a captain when they get a second return in the 80th minute when they're ahead? Like, and I know I will get that from Palmer because Palmer didn't play midweek or Palmer didn't play this weekend. Palmer now plays on Tuesday and then the next game he has is on Monday. So he plays 90 for me. Of course, Bournemouth are a tougher opponent than Wolves. But at the moment, I've just moved it to Palmer. But I am still 50-50 to be very honest. So this may change. And I'll obviously, we'll see what Eddie Howe says. My heart still says Isak and my head is saying Palmer. That's where I am right now. So we'll see where I end up. So there's no path today. I don't have the paths because they're so dependent on the cup results that my path basically is save. Next 4 weeks, unless there's an injury. And then we take it from there. So I'll still keep doing my team selection videos, but they will get shorter, especially the midweek one, if there's no injuries. So thank you for listening and do like and subscribe if you can. And I have not done a plug for Sleeper, but next week Sleeper is back in the Champions League format. And obviously the Pick'em format is back as well. So I have not got the QR code. You can get the QR code from the main pod if you would like to take part. But if you can, that would be appreciated. And otherwise, thank you for the love. Take care.